Facebook.
With only 300 left to go around. Any of these sell out, we take them off the table. Final order of the year. Here's his white Santa. White. This one. And his white Santa black. This Santa in the white. Yellow. I have each Santa in black. Night and the victory over Milwaukee tonight.
All right. Well, welcome, everyone. People
Welcome.
connecting. Here we are in week number 9, the final lesson in the Ark of the Covenant study. And we have really covered a lot of ground. I wonder if this is going to be like sometimes I take classes, at seminary or whatever. And usually later on after the class is over, I look over some notes or something and I learn a little bit more. So hopefully some of these concepts and ideas will take you guys into the holiday season and end of the year. And you'll be able to revisit some things. Of course, anytime anything comes up, especially in our lectionary calendar that contributes or reminds us of this particular study, then we'll certainly point those things out as we come across them. Make sure I can share stuff.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Sharon.
Welcome aboard. Welcome. Tonight we'll be looking at scriptures mostly in the book of 1 Kings. But again, some of these same events are recorded in the book of Chronicles, and I'll tell you where those are in the book of 2 Chronicles, actually. So we'll be in 1 Kings and also 2 Chronicles. Remember again, Samuel was written really as one book, but it was so long they broke it up into 1st and 2nd Samuel. And also the records of the kings was really one book. And in our Bibles, it says 1 and 2 Kings, but in the original text, they were all just a single book. One of the chapters in Samuel had more than 89 verses. I was like, okay, I see how that's pretty long. We'll be looking at, of course, chapter 5, 1 Kings chapter 5, a little bit of 6. I know some of 8, and then some. Great insight from, I believe, chapter 14 is where we'll jump to before we're done. So welcome everybody that's on Zoom and all of those that are connecting to Facebook. Again, you can share your screen on Facebook so some of your other friends and family can catch us live, but also see it on your storyline after tonight is done. Now I forgot my prayer. I had notes from Sunday's prayer. I wanted to pray one of the songs. I think it was 132. Yeah. We're going to use as a prayer tonight, Psalm number 132. I guess verses 1 through we'll go through. It's only 18 verses. We'll use the psalm as a prayer. Psalm number 132. And as we pray this psalm, again, given all the things that we've already covered and talked about, especially on last week, as you listen or even read along, see if anything comes to your mind as we work through these particular words. It says, David and Zion chosen. I have a subtitle under my Psalm 132 in my Holden Christian Standard Bible. David and Zion chosen. Psalm number 132, we'll use as opening prayer tonight. Lord, remember David and all the hardships he endured and how he swore an oath to the Lord, making a vow to the mighty one of Jacob. I will not enter my house or get into my bed. I will not allow my eyes to sleep or my eyelids to slumber until I find a place for the Lord, a dwelling for the mighty one of Jacob. Verse 6, we heard of the ark in Ephrathah. We found it in the fields of Jair. Let us go to his dwelling place. Let us worship at his footstool. Arise, Lord, come to your resting place, you and the ark that shows your strength. May your priests be clothed with righteousness, and may your godly people shout for joy because of your servant David. Do not reject your anointed one. The Lord swore an oath to David, a promise he will not abandon. I will set one of your descendants on your throne. If your sons keep my covenant and my decrees that I will teach them, their sons will also sit on your throne forever. For the Lord has chosen Zion. He has desired it for his home. This is my resting place forever. I will make my home here because I have desired it. I will abundantly bless its food. I will satisfy its needy with bread. I will clothe its priests with salvation, and its godly people will shout for joy. There I will make a horn grow for David. I have prepared a lamp for my anointed one. I will clothe his enemies with shame, but the crown he wears will be glorious. And with that, we open up this final study in the book of the Ark of the Covenant. Again, we'll share this on Sunday morning as well in our prayer, Psalm number 132, where we revisit even some of the things that we've already been learning and how important David is in this particular story, and certainly in our faith walk and in our salvation plan, if you will. So as we always start, any questions, any burning questions anyone has from any lesson, anything last week, anything that you've come across yourself, we certainly would be honored to address any of those before we dig right in.
Well, I do have I guess it's not a question, but a comment.
Yes.
Reading about David and the way David actually lived, I'm just a little surprised that his kingship wasn't taken away from him because of his behavior.
Right. And the New Testament uses words concerning the character of God as certainly forgiving, but in I think 1st or 2nd Peter, they use this word, and I don't think we talk about it much as a church sometimes. This long suffering. Not just David, but with people in general. God really puts up with a lot, and we see that in not only particular stories, and certainly it takes a different light when as you pointed out, we're talking about one of God's servants or one of God's chosen ones. And it just lets us know as a faith community that this is one of the characteristics of the God we serve. He truly is long suffering. And even when we don't really comply with all of his will for our own lives, you know, we can kind of rest assured to say, hey, you know, Lord, even calling out, you know, David did worse than me and you didn't take his life. But certainly I hear the sentiment that you raised when you talk about that. If you think David is something, as the number of kings and different kings come on the throne, some of them are real rascals, and that's really what happens to the nation. They go through this cycle of disobedience. They suffer punishment from God, then they return to obedience, then God forgives, and then the next king comes, and it's just this cycle in the rest of the Old Testament in this regard. Up until, of course, Babylonian exile, and even after that, they're shown some more grace where they're able to return to Jerusalem or the city of Zion and to rebuild.
Just on a similar note, what I've noticed through the you know, the different Bible study nights and the Bible, you know, how true to his word God is. You know, if we follow what he tells us to do, he's been, you know, honest and exact in doing what he said he would do for us.
Right.
And I just see that, and I've seen in these stories that those who do that, you know, that's pretty much
Right.
you know how it
And that's another attribute we always celebrate: God's faithfulness. And see, this is why I have a problem with people who say, even today, you know, God's not going to do X, Y, Z, or God's not going to relegate any people to hell. And I'm like, I can only go by what it says he's going to do. And as far as we've seen, whenever God has said something, it actually has come to pass. So I try not to put too much kind of hope into trying to assume God is going to take some different action than he has already spoken. And I think that's where even today in our church, you know, these are the kind of conversations that are going on even today concerning this God that we talk about. And I always say, I got to go by the record. I can't use my own mind to try to, you know, figure out God. I got to go by the record. I got to present what has already taken place. And then all of us, you know, kind of walk and live in that. But it's a lot of philosophy out there. It's a lot of false teachings, and it's certainly a lot of errors concerning what you know, people kind of say God will do ultimately. I guess the kind of cliche term is, if it walks and looks and acts like a duck, it's a duck. Okay, so we'll go. Oh, good insights, guys. I'll go to sharing my week 9 notes now, because I think I do the summary at the beginning, and we'll jump right in. And this is exactly what you got almost in the email. So it's not, this is, today I kind of just took what we sent the day before yesterday and kind of just jumped right in. So last week, with King David's help, we discovered the ark is called by the name of the Lord of hosts, who dwells between the cherubim. And we got that from 2 Samuel chapter 6 and verse 2. King David was the anointed leader of the single nation. Now remember, last week, there's just one nation, and it's just called Israel. The nation who made covenant, who God made covenant with to make him, talking about David, an everlasting kingdom. The joy for us through David's seed or offspring, the Messiah would come and God's glory would never again depart from him. And we capitalized that him because it was talking about someone in David's future, this eternal kingdom would dwell. David had many characteristics and attributes that allude to Christ, namely being born in Bethlehem. Again, Beth, anytime you see Beth, even today, Beth, the beginning of that word Beth only means house of. So when you see these synagogues called Beth Shalom, that's house of peace. Or Beth Israel, that's house of Israel. So Bethlehem, Lehem is also Lechem, Lechem. And Lechem, any person that speaks German will tell you means bread. So Bethlehem is the house of bread. And then you can use the other word, Bethsaida, Bethesda, all of these things are house of whatever the trailing part is. He was from Bethlehem. He was born in Bethlehem. He's of the tribe of Judah, and he's also anointed king, anointed by God, I might add. Age 30 was when his ministry began. In David's case, his lordship over the nation, and his crowning achievement was to get the ark called by the name into the city of Zion, or another name for Zion, the city of Shalom, or the city of his peace, or the city of David, or also called Jerusalem. Jesus fulfilled all these things in his birth, his earthly ministry, his sacramental death on the cross, the resurrection, of course, the appearance 40 days, and his ascension into heaven. He now sits in the Holy of Holies at the right hand of God, interceding for those he came to save. And remember, we saw that in the book of Hebrews chapter 9, where the Hebrew writer reminded us that Jesus didn't go into an earthly tent or tabernacle. He went into one not made with hands. So where are we tonight? Our final lesson will trace the last Old Testament scriptures that speak on the ark. And we're going to show you those. And a few others that will give us a clue as to what may have become of it after the single nation Israel is split into two. Today, we're going to be talking about the divided kingdom, Israel and Judah. And as I always tell people, one of the other things that makes the Old Testament hard to understand is whenever it says Israel, you got to ask yourself, is it talking about Israel, the person who was Jacob before God changed his name? Is it talking about Israel, the single nation? Or is it talking about Israel, the northern kingdom of the divided nation? You always got to kind of know where you are in the text to understand which Israel is being spoken of. The word Israel is also, or the nation, the 10 tribe nation Israel is also called in the scripture Ephraim. And sometimes that's a distinction. It'll say Ephraim instead of Israel. And you know that it's talking about the 10 tribes to the north. The 2 tribes in the south were Judah. And ultimately, they went into exile. The northern tribe went into exile because they were conquered by Assyrians, and the Babylonians conquered the southern tribe, Judah. The nation Judah ended up after Babylonian exile in the Medo-Persian reign, and they returned to Jerusalem and rebuilt. Now, here's the things they actually were able to rebuild. They rebuilt the temple under Ezra's watch, also recorded in the book of Ezra. They rebuilt the wall around the temple, around the area under Nehemiah, and then also this nation state. And the nation state would have been, again, Israel, until later it's called the Jewish nation, which we talk about even today in our politics and in our world. Sadly, the coveted ark, I will tell you this up front, the coveted ark was not part of the rebuild. We don't find in any of the book of Ezra or Nehemiah anything concerning the ark was found, rediscovered, and brought back into the temple that they bought, that they rebuilt. It's not even mentioned. But they do rebuild the temple, and they know what was in the first temple. But we have no recorded evidence that the ark ever returned to that temple. And that nation actually went through some 400 years. Now just think about how long that is. 400 years would transpire before the covenant promise to David was realized in what we call the Christmas story, or the birth of Christ. Of course, the world all around them had changed. It's no longer Medo-Persian Empire. The dominant force in the area becomes the Roman Empire. And that's why Roman soldiers and King Herod and all those things we look at in the next several weeks, we'll be examining again, are part of the text and part of the story, because the Romans have come to power. Remember, they bring iron weapons with them, and they're able to dominate the region. And Israel, or the Jewish nation, is a small kind of mini state inside the Roman Empire. They have Herod as a king, but Herod's not Jewish. But he is put in charge of the Jews to kind of keep them, let's say, keep them from getting in trouble and being a threat to the Roman Empire. But he figures prominently, certainly in the story of Jesus's birth, and then even when Jesus goes to the cross, he has to deal with Caesar Augustus and all these kind of Roman figures. So Rome becomes the dominant nation and force in the area, and the New Testament begins again with the words reminding us of the two sacred covenants that come out of that 400-year plus history in the Gospel of Matthew, the first verse, the first chapter, where we read the historical record of Jesus Christ. And it calls him very quickly the son of David and also the son of Abraham. So these two covenants are now the binding documents, if you will, that usher in the reign of Christ, and certainly our own church age that we ascribe to today. So that's kind of like a quick history all the way to, you can see how, just tying these things together, we study in the Ark of the Covenant, and it brings us to what we really practice and live out in our faith today. All these things are connected very, 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 very tightly, and they have to do with covenants and the holiness of God, and what God spoke to Abraham and then spoke to David and then speaks to us through Christ. So let's jump right into it. We're going to start off with Kings. In the chapter 5, we'll just do the first 5 verses. Chapter 6, we'll read kind of almost the whole chapter, 1 through 28, and then also 37 and 38. And we'll just go through the set of questions that we sent out to you as we dig in. Now, hopefully you already have answers, and you guys will contribute as we fill in the blanks. So 1 Kings, chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. And of course, we go here because we certainly want you to see, again, that, we're not talking about David anymore, but we're still following the ark. And so this chapter begins to tell us some things that have already transpired, and we can kind of pick up our storyline. 1 Kings chapter 5, beginning at verse 1. Hiram, king of Tyre, sent his servants to Solomon when he heard that he had been anointed king in his father's place. For Hiram had always been friends with David. Y'all get that? Hiram, king of Tyre, sent stuff to Solomon when he heard that Solomon had been anointed king in his father's place. And Hiram had always been friends of Solomon's dad, who would be David. Verse 2, Solomon sent this message to Hiram: "You know my father David was not able to build a temple for the name of the Lord his God. This was because of the warfare all around him, until the Lord put his enemies under his feet. The Lord my God has now given me rest all around. There is no enemy or crisis. So I plan to build a temple for the name of the Lord, my God, according to what the Lord promised my father David. I will put your son on your throne in your place, and he will build the temple for my name. Now, Solomon is actually quoting words that God gave David in that verse 5. Now, the rest of that chapter, this person that he's talking to, Hiram, gives Solomon all of these. This is a common thing too. Everything these people want to build, somebody just gives them the stuff to do it. Did y'all see that with David? And now you find the same thing with Solomon. And it's also a king of Tyre. So Tyre, the prophet Ezekiel talks a lot about the king of Tyre. And that's a whole nother story for another day. But these people that live in Tyre, and it's right on the borders near the Mediterranean, they have some vested interest in this kingdom being well supplied. Although they're not Israelites themselves, they have kind of kinship with Israel, and you see it in these texts last week when we talked about David, and now when we're talking about Solomon. So let's skip to chapter 6. Chapter 6. Begin at verse 1. Solomon began to build the temple for the Lord in the 480th year after the Israelites came out from the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of his reign over Israel, in the 2nd month, in the month of Ziv. The temple that King Solomon built for the Lord was 90 feet long, 30 feet wide, 45 feet high. The portico in front of the temple sanctuary was 30 feet long, extending across the temple's width, and 15 feet deep in front of the temple. He also made windows with the beveled frames for the temple. He then built a chambered structure along the temple wall, encircling the walls of the temple, that is the sanctuary, and the inner sanctuary. He made side chambers all around. The lowest chamber was 7.5 feet wide. The middle was 9 feet wide, and the third was 10.5 feet wide. He also provided offset ledges for the temple all around the outside, so that nothing would be inserted into the temple walls. The temple's construction was used finished stones cut at the quarry, so that no hammer or chisel or any iron tool was heard in the temple while it was being built. And there's some kind of reverence for God. You're going to build him a temple, and you don't even want any noise to be on the premises as you building God's temple. So they kind of in the quarry, they form the rock and bring those same rocks to the area where they're going to use them in building. No chisels and banging and all this kind of craziness going on as they building God's temple. I thought that was very interesting when I read it. Verse 8. The door for the lowest side chamber was on the right side of the temple. They went up a stairway to the middle chamber, and from the middle to the third. When he finished building the temple, he paneled it with boards and planks of cedar. He built the chambers along the entire temple. He joined to the temple with cedar beams. Each story was 7.5 feet high. The word of the Lord came to Solomon, as for this temple you are building, if you walk in my statutes, execute my ordinances, and keep all my commandments, by walking in them, I will fulfill my promise to you, which are made to your father David. I will live among the Israelites and not abandon my people Israel. Verse 14, when Solomon finished building the temple, he paneled the interior temple walls with cedar boards from the temple floor to the surface of the ceiling, and he overlaid the interior with wood. He also overlaid the floor with cypress boards. Then he lined 30 feet of the rear of the temple with cedar boards from the floor to the surface of the ceiling. He built the interior as the inner sanctuary, the most holy place. The temple, that is, the sanctuary in front of the most holy place, was 60 feet long. The cedar paneling inside the temple was carved with ornamental gourds and flower blossoms. Everything was cedar. Not a stone could be seen. He prepared the inner sanctuary inside the temple to put the Ark of the Lord's covenant there. The interior of the sanctuary was 30 feet long, 30 feet wide, 30 feet high. He overlaid it with pure gold. He also overlaid the cedar altar. Next, Solomon overlaid the interior of the temple with pure gold. He hung gold chains across the front of the inner sanctuary, and he overlaid it with gold. So he added the gold overlay to the entire temple until everything was completely finished, including the entire altar that belongs to the inner sanctuary. In the inner sanctuary, he made 2 cherubim, 15 feet high, out of olive wood. One wing of the first cherub was 7.5 feet long, and the other wing was 7.5 feet long. The wingspan was 15 feet from tip to tip. The second cherub also was 15 feet. Both cherubim had the same size and shape. The first cherub height was 15 feet, and so was the second cherubs. Then he put the cherubim inside the inner temple. Since their wings were spread out, the first one's wing touched one wall, while the second cherub's wing touched the other wall. And in the middle of the temple, their wings were touching wing to wing. He also overlaid the cherubim with gold. Skip now to verses 37 and 38, the end of the chapter. The foundation of the Lord's temple was laid in Solomon's 4th year in the month of Ziv. In his 11th year, in the 8th month, in the month of Bull, the temple was completed in every detail and according to every specification. So he built it in 7 years. So a lot of information there. Let's just go through the questions so we can make sure we all on the same page. So who becomes the king of the single nation after King David?
Solomon.
Say it again.
Solomon.
Now, that's the easy answer. Who is Solomon?
David's son.
Who's his mother?
Bathsheba.
Say it again.
Bathsheba.
Yes. His mother is Bathsheba. Now, I didn't ask you this on the questions, but is this the son of Bathsheba that David had when he had the adulterous affair with her?
No.
Didn't that child die?
That's correct. That's correct. 2 things happened as a curse to David. Because of that, Renee was asking earlier about all this stuff David did. He got punished. 2 things happened. The first child died. And what was the second thing that was going to be a punishment? Anybody remember? See how astute you Old Testament Bible people are. God promised him 2 things would happen. Mr. Gerard was just talking about God's faithfulness. Anybody? Okay, just to save time, let me give you it. The kingdom will split.
Oh.
Because of David's affair with Bathsheba and the killing of her husband, Uriah. The prophet told David, number 1, that child's not going to live. And number 2, this kingdom will be split in 2. That happens very early. As far as a promise, it's not fulfilled until we continue to follow this Ark of the Covenant, which we'll get to. Now, what about this question? What new thing do we learn about why David was not allowed to build God an earthly house? Did y'all see anything different or new in this particular chapter, chapter 5?
All
Everything that
of the
happened.
warfare all around him.
Right.
Okay, now that's kind of weird because we read that David did enjoy some peace. And here's what we'll do. I'm gonna put this here and I'm gonna put a little asterisk or at point, because we're gonna read this same thing a little bit later in the Chronicle and see what that writer says about it. Because Solomon says it in a weird way. He says, my father was so busy fighting wars that God didn't let him build the temple. But God gave David rest from his enemies as well. Although he ended up having some internal problems, his son started trying to kill him, of course. But this statement here is one of those statements that we say is not the whole story, but he does mention it. And I'm glad you guys picked it up. Now, what about this temple? Do you see any resemblances or any differences between the temple that we're talking about and the tent of meeting?
Well, the first thing that I noticed was there was no veil. There were doors to the inner sanctuary, they called it.
Okay.
So I was a little confused there, but again, I guess since this temple was destroyed and there was another one built, I guess they brought back the veil, because when Christ died on the cross, the veil was split from top to bottom. So that's
good observation. Anybody else? What's the difference or likenesses between the temple and tent of meeting?
Well, the temple is not mobile.
yeah.
Like the tent of meeting.
Good.
Materials were very different.
Yes. Materials. Remember acacia wood versus cypress or cedar. Everything in the tent of meeting was all, acacia this, acacia that. And now we're talking about cedar. Anything else? I'm just writing down what y'all say. Y'all keep yelling them out.
Isn't it
Well-
much larger?
Yes, much larger. We're talking about, and we're going to, of course, have some pictures for you to see. The tent of meeting, I forget how many cubits it was this way and that way, but this temple is much bigger. As a matter of fact, one writer says that the tent of meeting can easily fit into the temple that Solomon built. Like easy, like with room to spare. Go ahead, somebody else with Grace say something.
They don't call it, well, in this temple, they don't call it the Holy of Holies. They call it the inner sanctuary where the ark was.
Okay, now let's walk down that one. Holy of Holies.
Yeah, in the tabernacle, they called it the Holy of Holies. But
versus-
this one, they called it the inner sanctuary.
There's another name too that you must learn. What else is it called? Did y'all catch that?
Let's see.
I think I
Was
put that
it the
question
most
down
holy?
at the bottom.
Was it the most holy place?
Yes. Who said that, Renee?
Mhm.
All right, Renee, you have to get a gift, because guess what? If you looked at my notes up top, I don't tell you the name of this because that's one of the questions. The name of this lesson is the most holy place. Now I can fill that in. The most holy place. They're going to start referring to the most holy place. And it's going to be the place in the inner sanctuary of Solomon's temple where the Ark of the Covenant resides. The most holy place. So just follow this theme now. David moves the Ark into the city of David, or into Shalom, or into Jerusalem, or into Zion. And Solomon moves it into the most holy place. Most holy place. In other words, you and I still got some traveling to do, I suppose.
It took longer to build.
How long?
Oh,
7 years.
7
Good.
years.
7 years, yeah.
Use.
Here we go again with that 7.
Yep.
7 years to build. Did we ever see how long it took to build the Ark of the Covenant? Did they ever give us that? I don't know
I don't
that.
believe they did.
No, I don't remember that one. Another thing that I noticed of course, the building is huge, but the cherubim,
Bigger.
in the tabernacle, they were on top of the mercy seat.
Yeah,
But these, as described, they must have been huge as the wing. I mean, they were like so many feet from each wall, and like the wings just touched in the middle. But I couldn't figure out. My Bible is saying you're doing all that cubits thing, and I haven't done the math. But it seems like they were huge.
they exactly were. They stood, what we say, 15 feet tall, and the wingspan is 15 feet from one end to the other. And notice the inner sanctuary is a complete cube.
Yes, I
It's a
did.
complete cube. Anytime you have 3 dimensions that's all the same length, that makes a perfect cube. And the cherubs, the wing of one touches one wall, the wing of the other, the outer wing of the other touches the other wall, and the 2 wings of the inner cherubs touch each other.
So I have a question.
Yes,
Does that mean that the cherubim on top of the ark are no longer there? Those original ones? Or is this just an addition inside the most holy place?
yes, it is an addition. The Ark of the Covenant is going to sit under the wings of these 2 huge angels or cherubs or whatever you want to call them. Now, I've seen a couple pictures. Some of them look like cherubs and some of them look like, y'all heard of this term? I got to spell it right. I think they call it seraphs.
So they also call it that.
Y'all know what a seraph looks like? Seraph is a 6-winged creature. Talked about in the book of Revelations, talked about in the book of Daniel. And the one of the books read, a seraph is a thing that has 6 wings. With two wings, it covers its eyes. With 2 wings, it covers its feet. And with 2 wings, it can fly. So a seraph is a 6-winged creature. The book of Kings called these cherubs, which we kind of interpret as almost angelic looking. But I've seen pictures where they actually build out seraphs, which can look like angels, but the difference is they have 6 wings, as opposed to anytime you see wings as angels, especially around this holiday season, they're always 2-winged creatures.
So then are the original cherubim still on top of the mercy seat?
Yes,
Okay,
the Ark of the Covenant is still intact.
okay,
And that means it has what's in it, and it has the lid, and the lid has the 2 cherubim that
Okay.
face each other, and the mercy seat is there. Okay, good stuff, y'all. Y'all into it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One thing I felt that was similar with the temple and the tent of the meetings is that you couldn't go beyond certain points. And so if those wingspans were 15 each from tip to tip, and the whole width of the room was 30, that means that it covered that whole wall or blocked that section where you could not go around, or I don't know if that's disrespectful or what, but you could not go around behind if they are the exact span of that back wall or whichever wall they were in front of for the 30 width.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I wanted you guys to really dig into this because you got to visualize it. I'm going to try to show you some pictures. I can't find a nice, clear picture, but I'm going to try to show you some pictures because the thing, when you look at it, is awesome. It's awesome. It's something that you can't look away from when you see it. It's something that really grabs your eye. You guys have been to art museums and you go and you look at something and you go, either a statue or some paintings, and you just a little breathless by the detail, the art, the this. This thing is built to cause awe. You do not come and see this thing and leave thinking, oh yeah, it's just a nice little statue that he put up. No, this whole room, this whole most holy place is built to give a kind of feeling, you get it emotional, and it's all gold. Everything is gold. He said
Everything's gold.
the bricks are outside, but he put enough wood in there that you don't see any brick. And then on top of the wood, he layers the entire thing in gold. The cherubs are gold.
The walls are gold.
The Ark of the Covenant, as you know, is laden with gold. It's got 2 long poles that stick through it. They're gold. So this thing would be something that if you really looked at it, you would be in awe. It's that big. And it's actually up on a high rise. You got to go up some steps to get to it. And so it's built so that this is like, again, what we talk about in church, the focal point of this room is the most holy place. The most holy place is the focal point of the room. And yet you're not supposed to, remember, you're not supposed to be looking at it. Like Miss Rose said, they put doors up so that you can't see it from the outside. Okay, so let's rock and roll, because you guys are ahead of the game, so that's going to work out good. Is there a place in the temple called the Holy of Holies? Y'all already answered that. It's called the most holy place, the inner sanctuary. What is it called? What does it look like? We'll talk about that. And how long does it take to build again? You guys got it. 7 years. There we go with the 7 again. The number of God's completion. Okay, let's jump. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 8 before I show you some pictures. 1 Kings chapter 8. Now, the next thing, the thing we skipped in chapter 7, of course, is Solomon actually builds not only the temple, he builds a palace for himself as well. So that's all we're skipping by going past chapter 7. Wait a minute, let me see one more thing in 8. Okay, chapter 8, let's look at verses 1 through 13. So all this is built, it's all ready. It comes time now for dedication. Still a practice that the church does today. You know how we dedicate a building, or we dedicate an organ, or we dedicate a new choir. These things are right out of Old Testament liturgy and still part of our faith. At that time, Solomon assembled the elders of Israel, all the tribal leaders and the ancestral leaders of the Israelites before him at Jerusalem in order to bring the Ark of the Lord's covenant from Zion, the city of David. So all the men of Israel were assembled in the presence of King Solomon in the 7th month, the month of Ethanim, at the festival. Now, this is very interesting. When I saw that, I don't remember what festival that is, but of course, I think we have it as a question for you. If you guys tell me the festival, I think that gets a prize. Okay, verse 3. All the elders of Israel came, and the priests picked up the ark. Now, notice he didn't do like his father. He didn't put on no cart. The priests picked up the ark. The priests and the Levites brought the ark of the Lord, the tent of meeting, and the holy utensils that were in the tent. King Solomon and the entire congregation of Israel who had gathered around him and were with him in front of the ark were sacrificing sheep and cattle that could not be counted or numbered because there were so many. The priests brought the ark of the Lord's covenant to its place into the inner sanctuary of the temple, to the most holy place, beneath the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim were spreading their wings over the place of the ark, so that the cherubim covered the ark in its poles from above. The poles were so long that their ends were seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary, but they were not seen from outside the sanctuary. They are there to this day. Now notice, when this was written, they must have been still there. Nothing was in the ark except the 2 stone tablets that Moses had put there at Horeb, where the Lord made a covenant with the Israelites when they came out of the land of Egypt. When the priest came out of the holy place, the cloud filled the Lord's temple. And because of the cloud, the priests were not able to continue ministering, for the glory of the Lord filled the temple. Then Solomon said, the Lord said that he would dwell in thick darkness, but I have indeed built an exalted temple for you, a place for your dwelling forever. Now we'll pause there in the reading because he gets into a big soliloquy, if you will, which includes his prayer that we won't go into now, but that's what rounds out this chapter 8 in the book of 1 Kings. So when does the dedication of the temple take place?
During the Festival of Shelters?
Okay, now, did you say that, or do you have commentary?
I think it was in my, I think it was actually in the text. Let me look again.
Okay. Anybody else have a footnote to chapter 8, verse 2? Some of you have study Bibles.
I have the Feast of Tabernacles.
It does say Feast of Tabernacles?
Mhm. I think so.
Pastor, I agree with Renee, because I kept some of my notes from the Bible study that you did on the Jewish feast.
Yeah.
And it says the 7th month was the Feast of Tabernacles, and you know, we would call it September through October.
Yes. And my Bible also has, my Bible has a footnote, September to October. Now, you guys know that we'll talk about the Feast of Tabernacles before we close, but this is very important, that the dedication of this happens on the Feast of Tabernacles based on our study of the Feast of the Lord, because this is very interesting now. And I'm getting, again, goose flesh all over me. I don't know what might happen Sunday. We in the most holy place on the Feast of Tabernacles. Here we go again with the ark. I'm telling y'all, this stuff is just locking in. But I did want you to note that. And so, Miss Shirley, we got you down. You gave us the Feast of Shelters, which is the same thing, the Feast of Tabernacles.
Okay, well, that's what I was going to say. Is that the same thing? Because it does say it in the text.
Yes. It's also called the Feast of Booths.
Okay.
Remember, we call it the Feast of Booths. Remember, today, still, some of the Israelite people, Jewish people, they on the Feast of Booths, they put tents outside their house with with a hole cut in the roof so they can look at the stars. They still observe this today.
Yes, they do. You know, Pastor, my cousin is Jewish, and she said a lot of people live in cities now, so they do it on their balconies.
Yes. So this is very important for us, that this dedication of the Ark of the Covenant being placed in the most holy place happens on the Feast of Booths, or the Feast of Tabernacles. God is so precise. My God, my God. And then, okay, let's go to this. This is one that'll spin your hair. What is inside the ark according to this text?
It's just the 2 tablets.
2 tablets, yeah.
Just the 2 tablets.
Yeah.
There's no mention here of Aaron's rod that buds.
No manna.
No pot of manna. I just want you to see that. I don't know what it means, but so far we're gonna have to, I'm gonna go back and see, what's going on, what happened. Now we do know that this is the second set of tablets. That is true, but other than that, no Aaron's rod that budded. Okay, just keep it in mind. And then read verse 7. Can you draw a picture of this? Chapter 8, verse 7 says again, For the cherubim were spreading their wings over the place of the ark, so that the cherubim covered the ark and its poles from above. If I ask you to draw this, could you draw this without me showing you a picture? And you don't have to be no great artist, but just, you know. Before we go to the picture, let's ask this question. What comes to your mind when you read verses 10 through 11? When the priest came out of the holy place, the cloud filled the Lord's temple. And because of the cloud, the priests were not able to continue ministering, for the glory of the Lord filled the temple.
When the tabernacle was completed, the Lord's glory filled the tabernacle, so the priests could not be inside it to do their sacrifices.
Yeah, and the tent of meeting one.
Yes.
Anybody else got something from scripture that comes to mind? There's a scripture that many pastors have preached over the years. It's one of the prophets. Say it again. Who's that? Somebody said something.
I said Isaiah, but I don't know. That's probably not.
What did Isaiah say?
Let's see.
I think it's Isaiah 6.
And the whole place was filled with his glory or something like that. Let me turn to Isaiah.
Remember when Isaiah was called? He
Oh.
says, when King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord.
Mhm.
Go
to, I think it's Isaiah 6.
Let me see, Isaiah 6.
Somebody read Isaiah 6, 1 through 4. Man, this thing might preach again. Look, we got 2 sermons for Sunday.
Okay.
Y'all got it? Go ahead. Somebody read Isaiah 6, 1 through 4.
Okay. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on a throne, high and exalted, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphs, each with 6 wings. With 2 they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying, and they were calling to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of your glory. At the sound, how many verses did you say, Pastor?
Go ahead, one more verse 4.
Okay, at the sound of their voices, the doorposts and thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke.
Wow.
Woe to me, I cried, I am ruined, for I am a man of uncertain lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty.
Now, let me tell you something. Isaiah definitely had to have seen this temple, because when he is prophesying and when he's called, the thing that comes to mind is, of course, so it's just like anything else. When King Uzziah dies, a king dies, so they go to worship, to do their proper funeral and all of that. But Isaiah leaves that place as a prophet. He gets called by the Lord on the day he goes in there. And he sees something that these other people don't see, because the whole temple is filled with smoke, just as is done, or as we read, on the day the temple was dedicated, when the glory of the Lord and dark smoke filled the temple so thickly that the ministers, the priests, could not even minister. Oh, that's some good stuff, y'all. So let me jump to try to show just a few that I found concerning this this temple. Let me go to this one first. So here's a depiction of the temple. Now this is very interesting because you see the brick structure. You see this, everything inside laden with gold. You see these steps that go up, And then on this platform, raised platform, is the most holy place. Down the bottom here, real small, you can barely see it, is the Ark of the Covenant. And these two big things that's standing over top of it with wings touching would be those cherubs. You see all of this gold pylon outside that, you know, the way they got a cutaway so you can see inside it. But of course, all of it on the outside looks like this. When you come outside, I like this picture because guess what? They were recreating the whole courtyard in tent of meeting. Here is the burnt altar. And here is the basin. And then here are some other basins along the way. Now you can't see this from the picture, but inside, I'm gonna try to blow it up. All of these candelabra, the candlesticks are lined up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe it's 7 of them going down that wall, another 7 of them. There's an altar of incense right here in front of the steps that lead up to the Holy of Holies or the most holy place. And they got a person standing here so you can get some kind of field of vision about how big this place is compared to a regular, say, 5.5, 6 foot man. So that's one picture. And again, I apologize for the clarity of it, but this was one that I found. And we're going to go back to this sacrifice because this sacrifice on this day was enormous. Let me go to another one. That's picture 1. Let me go to picture 2. Now here's another picture a little more closely inside. Again, look at this. You can see this. Now on here, they look like they might be shaped like horses, but they do have wings. And you can see the Ark of the Covenant in here. You see the poles? So just like you asked, the Ark of the Covenant is sitting on the ground or ground level, and the cherubs that Solomon built that's bigger than them are above it. So that's a closer picture of the cutaway. And then I got one more, and this picture isn't that good either. This picture is simply a frontal view. Here we go. If you were looking straight up, again, you see the cherubs, the 2 big cherubs, you see the Ark of the Covenant. Again, you see the doors that Miss Rose talked about, in all gold, all laden. Now, the key is I wanted you to see this because when we get to chapter 14 and we talk about this place being sabotaged and robbed, you guys tell me, how can this thing be missed? How can this, of all things, escape somebody who's coming to, you know, take the temple, really take the treasures of the temple? How in the world can you miss the thing that's the centerpiece of the entire place? That's the question.
Just personally think that God just protected it there, that they didn't, you know, they didn't allow him to take it. I don't know what he could have done. He's all powerful, but I don't think it was missed. I don't think they could take it.
Okay, we'll get there. Let's go to 14. We rocking and rolling. It's only 8 o'clock. 8:03. 1 Kings chapter 14 is where we get into. Now again, this is the last time we talk about the Ark of the Covenant in Scripture, as far as it's never taken out to battle again and nothing like that. And it certainly is inside the temple that Solomon built, because he had a whole big dedication ceremony for it. So in chapter 14, a couple things have happened now. If you go back to about chapter 12. Yeah, let's go. Let's do this. Let's build it up. Go to chapter 11, verse 40, because we got to start bringing in some names so that you can connect some dots. Chapter 11, verse 40. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 40. Here's what it says. Therefore, Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam. Now, Jeroboam is trying to take over the kingdom. And as a matter of fact, there's some people in the north that want to make him king. And Solomon hears about it. And so Jeroboam is on the run. He's the son of Nadab. Therefore, Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but he fled to Egypt, to Shishak, king of Egypt, where he remained until Solomon's death. And that's what I mean by putting some puzzle pieces together. You must know that little bit of information before we get to 14. Verse 41 of chapter 11 says, the rest of the events of Solomon's reign, along with his accomplishments and his wisdom, are written in the book of Solomon's events. The length of Solomon's reign in Jerusalem over all Israel totaled 40 years. Solomon rested with his fathers, and he was buried in the city of his father David. His son Rehoboam became king in his place. So even if you didn't know what was happening altogether, two things are happening. Solomon dies, and the kingdom is about to be split. Rehoboam is Solomon's bloodline son. He's from Solomon's loins. Jeroboam is another person who is attempting to take over the kingdom as king. But since Solomon is heard of it, Jeroboam flees to Egypt, and he gets in cahoots with a person by the name of Shishak, who is the ruler in Egypt. Okay, now jump to 14, chapter 14.
Chapter 14.
And we're going to jump down to verse 21. Chapter 14 of 1 Kings, verse 21. Now Rehoboam, Solomon's son, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he became king. He reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city the Lord had chosen from all the tribes of Israel to put his name. Rehoboam's mother's name was Naamah, the Ammonite. Judah did what was evil in the Lord's eyes. They provoked him to jealous anger more than all their ancestors had done with the sins they committed. They also built for themselves high places, sacred pillars, and Asherah poles on every high hill and under every green tree. There were even male shrine prostitutes in the land. They imitated all the abominations of the nations the Lord had dispossessed before the Israelites. Verse 25 is where it gets interesting. In the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, went to war against Jerusalem. He seized the treasuries of the Lord's temple and the treasuries of the royal palace. This statement always does me in, and I'll hear from your Bible. He took everything. I've read this in King James Version. I read it in NIV. I read it. He took everything. He took all the gold shields that Solomon had made. King Rehoboam made bronze shields in their place, and he committed them into the care of the captains of the royal escorts who guarded the entrance to the king's palace. Whenever the king entered the Lord's temple, the royal escorts would carry the shields. These are now bronze because the gold is gone. Then they would take them back to the royal escorts' armory. Continuing down through verse 31. The rest of the events of Rehoboam's reign, along with all his accomplishments, are written about in historical record of Judah's kings. There was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam. throughout their reigns. Rehoboam rested with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. His mother's name was Naamah the Ammonite. His son was Abijam, and he became king in his place. So what we have here is one of the historical tethers to what may have happened to the ark. This is why we looked at this particular text. Let's go through the questions first. In this text, the kingdom is now divided. Jeroboam is Israel's king and Rehoboam is Judah's. What event do you recall concerning David is the reason for the divided kingdom? I think I already gave you that answer.
Mm-hmm.
His adultery with Bathsheba. That's the reason that they're in this pickle, on top of God already knowing that this particular kingdom under Rehoboam was going to turn evil. So name the grievous sins the kingdom of Judah commit. We read that in chapter 14.
They started worshiping the false gods, all those Asherah poles and all that stuff. Also, it mentioned the male prostitutes.
So look, so here's the thing. When God was driving out the people that were in this land, the promised land, for the Israelites, the one thing he kept telling them to do is to drive the people out completely, because if you start marrying their women and all of that, you're going to start worshiping their gods. And that's what actually happens. They didn't drive out all the Amorites, and they didn't drive out all of some of the other people. And what happens is after a while, you know, the fathers who are Jewish and the mothers who are of whatever nationality, they begin to permit, if you will, the worship of idols, which is a big no-no. It's one of the top 10, but it's grievous unto God. Anything else they did? They put up shrines and Asherah poles. And they were all over the place. And the thing was, they put these things up so that people could worship anywhere.
So in a way, wasn't he stealing when he took the gold shields and replaced them with the bronze shields? Or deceitful?
No. Okay, so he replaces the bronze shields after Shishak, the king of Egypt, actually takes away the gold. Is that the question? Rehoboam replaces, so the gold is taken by this king from Egypt. And so just to make the shrine look like, you know, it's pillaged. It's all wood in there now because he's taking all the gold out. And so what Rehoboam does to try to make it look presentable is to replace some of the things that are missing with bronze. And everybody can tell the difference between bronze and gold. So my question C, who does the Lord raise up to attack Judah?
Shishak.
Yes, Shishak, king of Egypt. Now here's the thing. This is how I get intrigued by scripture. Shishak is mentioned in chapter 11 where we read. What's very interesting about all of this? Anybody catch that? Why would I have us read chapter 11 about Shishak?
Wasn't he the one that did the robbing earlier? In the temple?
Shishak.
Yeah, no, he does that now, but what happens earlier with Shishak? In chapter 11, verse 40, where we read.
He's harboring the
Go ahead, say it.
the guy that the enemy of yeah, there you go.
Yes. Shishak is okay. So watch it. Jeroboam wants to take Solomon's throne. Solomon finds out about it and puts a bounty out on his head to kill him. He runs away to Egypt. The man that takes him in is a man named Shishak. So of course Jeroboam is telling him everything about Israel, about Judah, about the palace, about the gold, about the Holy of Holies, the most holy place. And here we go, a few years later, Shishak mounts an army and goes to Jerusalem and subdues that kingdom. So I call this a setup from the get up. This guy, he's not, okay, so he doesn't just stumble onto Judah and take them. This is an attack that's planned, and he knows what's there. If you don't believe that he knows everything, another chapter that we skip, the Queen of Sheba goes to Solomon's temple, and Solomon shows off the whole thing to her. And she goes back to Africa and tells everybody what's up there. And so
It's just amazing how time just keeps circling back, because
Yes.
with people, you talk about the male prostitutes and the disarray that's going on, and
Yes.
you talk about how people set people up when they invite them into their homes, and they see what they have, and then they go tell people, come back and rob them. It's like history just repeating itself all over again.
And this is, I'm glad you said that, Miss Kendra. This is what I always want you to remember when you're reading scripture, y'all. These are people just like us. They got the same tendencies, the same foibles, the same problems, the same jealousies. Everybody kind of read the Bible and think they're talking about some foreign people in another world somewhere. No, these are people with the same inclinations we have today. And you can see it if you really read the scripture for what it says. It tells you Jeroboam's on the run from Solomon. And he goes down, and the king of Egypt, Shishak, takes him in. And what do you think they talk about? If you help me go up there and kick some butt, I can get you some stuff. And sure enough, years later, Solomon dies. Jeroboam's now says Solomon's dead. In other words, this was actually in the movie Black Panther. Remember when the character, the Jordan character, Michael Jordan character. Remember when they were talking about him, and the American agent said, we taught him how to go in and take over governments, and you do it when a leader changes. That's the most vulnerable time. What did we just see in our own country on January 6th? Whenever a leader changes, that's the time where you mount an attack, because the nation is at its most vulnerable point. This is a class strategy of war. Every guerrilla warfare person knows this. If you really want to get people, at a certain time, catch them when the leadership is changing, and you can cause all sorts of havoc. They'll be in disarray. They don't know if they following this one or that one, and we can go in and take everything. We learn it right from the Bible.
So, Pastor, if Shishak took everything, does that mean he took the Ark of the Covenant too?
I believe he did. I believe the writers didn't write it, but when you tell me he took everything, and the center of attention in that room is up them stairs, them big golden cherubs and all of that, man, put that stuff on a cart. We're going to take that mess to Egypt, melt it down. It was gold. It was solid gold. Why would you leave that? The only way, watch this. Let's put it this way. And watch this, what Mr. Gerard said. Remember, the Ark of the Covenant is mobile. You can easily move that. The Philistines took it on a cart. Why would you leave it? You are Egyptian. You have no allegiance to this God and this authority. You taking all the utensils. You taking anything of value. And not only does he rob the temple, he robs the palace. Solomon's home got invaded. And so I believe it was a full-on war. And I believe too that it was taken then, which is one reason why you don't hear about it again, but also because God knew that the nation is about to go into exile. The nation is about to, the nation, the northern tribe is about to be taken over by Amorites or Assyrians. And the southern tribe of 40 years later is going to be taken by Babylonians. And when we read the chronicle version of it, we'll see the priestly spin on this same attack. Okay, so let's finish up with this. Given what he took, again, I'm just showing you evidence. What do you think Shishak would leave? Especially given this beautiful immobile ark sitting under two big cherubs. Again, the center of attention soon as you go into the place. It's hard for me to believe that he would take some spears and some candlesticks and some tables and some incense burners and leave this thing sitting in the center of the room. So we have evidence because one of the locations for the ark today is a small church in, of all places, Ethiopia, which if you look at a map is on its way to Egypt.
Question for you. Did they leave the ark because if they touched it, they would die?
So, okay, so beautiful question. Before I answer, somebody else weigh in.
Didn't Cherubim make priest of anybody that he thought that would serve him?
Do you need to go down that road?
No.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
seriously.
yeah, that he did.
What do we know about the ark from time to time that will permit this kind of thievery?
Well, sometimes different times the Lord's glory left.
There you go. There who's Miss Rose. The
Yep.
glory of the Lord had again departed. Why did it depart? Y'all already said it. Because they started worshiping idols. They had male prostitutes working the shift. They had Asherah poles all over the land. They were an abomination. In 1 Kings, we read, these people did more sin than any of their predecessors. Did y'all catch that?
Mm-hmm.
They provoked the Lord to anger, verse 22, more than all their ancestors had done with the sins they committed. In other words, all of that stuff in the wilderness, begging for water and telling Moses, take us back to Egypt and building a golden calf, all of that stuff did not compare to what this nation was doing in this particular season. So we could assume, for the sake of argument, Sister Kendra, that one of the ways that they could actually walk out of there with it is, here we go again, with the glory of the Lord having been departed, the enemy, just like the Philistines earlier, could actually take it in the rampage.
So past that 3C, we say, you asked the question, who does the Lord raise up to attack Judah as punishment? And we say that was King Shishak.
Yes.
So he used the king that robbed the temple.
Yes. Yes.
You know, so where the ark was at.
Yes.
So I mean, so I'm just kind of I'm trying to understand that in relationship where we talk about, you know, the glory of the Lord may have departed, you know, I mean, maybe that's significant and why that's what God used. I mean, or even allowed that to take place at the temple.
Right.
And then he's going to use them, you know. I'm not kind of clear on what I'm.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear exactly what you're saying. So watch this. Who, and this is what I mean by the word helping the word. What prophet can we go to understand this phenomena that we just studied? What did Habakkuk teach us? Remember Habakkuk's problem? Habakkuk said, God, how are you going to use Babylonians who are worse than us to teach us a lesson? And he comes away in chapter 3 saying, the just shall live by faith. In other words, it is not uncharacteristic of God to use a foreign nation to discipline these people or his people. I'll throw us in the batch with it. We have seen this one time. We have seen it twice. We have seen it more than twice. And that's what I say. Anytime you really get down and get a very clear, repeated characteristic of God, we better believe that that is really the nature and not try to theologize it away.
So we need to really watch what we do and how we judge, because, you know, I just think about,
yes,
this is making me think, like, you know, most of us try to walk righteously, you know, but then we look at people who may have been sinners before, and we're all sinners, but I'm just saying we compare our sin compared to somebody else's sin.
Right.
But, you know, they have been out robbing and stealing and drug use, and, you know, the list goes on and on and on.
Yep.
And then they get a calling. And they may, you know, have some type of position in the church or feel like they can, you know, talk to other people or whatever. And we start looking at them side-eyed saying, no, because I remember when they did whatever. And you start recalling all of the sins that they did, ignoring your own, but recalling all their sins.
Yes.
But God still can reach out to them if he's reaching out to all these people that we know robbed and did everything else, but yet he still reached out to them. So that tells us about some of our visions and how we judge and the lens that we look through. We really need to check ourselves. I mean, this is just making me think of you know, we see people, we talk about what they've done, and then we don't want to hear what they have to say.
Yes. And Miss Kendra, even more than that, right now, many of us believe that the church is under judgment for some of these same atrocities. We have these, let's just put it this way, we play favorites, and we have not been biblical, and we certainly have not been just. And so we find that God does chastise. I'm talking about not as a Strawbridge, I'm talking about as a church proper. Because again, you know, the list is long. You know, we got racism in the church, we got sexism in the church, we got molestation in the church, we got all sorts of stuff in the family. And when we read these scriptures, we go, oh yeah, God will send some outsiders to bust you up. If you really want to talk about God, you know, you can be under the judgment of God, not his wrath, but his judgment. And it can come from an outside source. Turn to chapter 12 of 2nd Chronicles. We'll end here. Because we, again, remember, Chronicles is now the priestly writing of the same set of circumstances in our case. We found the text where it's talking about the same thing that we read in 1 Kings 14. Now look at what the priests add to it. Watch what the priests say. And actually, in the earlier chapters, he actually goes into some more detail about the temple dedication and all that. We'll turn back in a second. I just want you to see how many animals were slaughtered. In the King's version, it said they couldn't number the number of animals that were slaughtered, but the priests actually write it down and they have the numbers. But in chapter 12, when Rehoboam had established his sovereignty and royal power, what does the priestly tell you? He abandoned the law of the Lord. He and all Israel with him. So right there, brother Gerard, right there is the indictment. This is the priestly version of the same event. When Rehoboam had established his sovereignty and royal power, he abandoned the law of the Lord. What do we know about God's law that he told Moses? If you don't follow this stuff to the letter, I'm going to come down on you. He told it to Moses. Moses told it to Joshua. Joshua told it to the next person. The next person told it to the next person. Somebody told it to David, and David told it to Solomon. And now here we are with Rehoboam, Solomon's son, and we're getting just what God said. Verse 2, because they were unfaithful to the Lord, in the 5th year, I got to turn the page. In the 5th year, King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, went to war against Jerusalem with 1,200 chariots, 60,000 cavalrymen, and countless people who came with him. Look at where they come from Egypt, Libyans, Sukkim, Ethiopians. He brought a massive army up there, y'all. And if you don't think he could carry all of that stuff out of that temple, you just add up the numbers. He captured the fortified city of Judah, and he came as far as Jerusalem. Then Shemaiah the prophet went to Rehoboam and the leaders of Judah who were gathered at Jerusalem because of Shishak. He said to them, this is what the Lord says, you have abandoned me. Therefore, I have abandoned you into the hand of Shishak. So the leaders of Israel and the king humbled themselves, and they said, the Lord is righteous. When the Lord saw that they had humbled themselves, the Lord's message came to Shemaiah. They have humbled themselves. Listen to what he says. I will not destroy them, but will grant them a little deliverance. My wrath will not be poured out on Jerusalem through Shishak. However, they will become his servants so that they may recognize the difference between serving me and serving the kingdoms of the land. Verse 9, so Shishak of Egypt went to war against Jerusalem. He seized the treasuries, plural, of the Lord's temple and the treasuries of the royal palace. Again, what does it say? He took everything. He took everything. That might be the message. He took everything. He took the gold shields that Solomon had made. King Rehoboam made bronze shields in their place, and he committed them to the care of the captains of the royal escorts who guarded the interests of the king's palace. In other words, after he took all the gold they had, they were standing outside with nothing. They looked naked. And Rehoboam said, look, let's melt down some bronze and give y'all something. Y'all look a mess. And then verse 11, whenever the king entered the Lord's temple, the royal escorts would carry the shields and take them back to the royal escorts. When Rehoboam humbled himself, the Lord's anger turned away from him, and he did not destroy him completely. Besides that, conditions were good in Judah. So this is where, again, I always let the scripture speak for themselves. I think it happened here. I don't think it waits until a futuristic Babylonians come in and rip them apart and all of that kind of stuff. Somebody else said that they think Jeremiah, the prophet, might have taken the Ark of the Covenant and hidden it. I can't find all of that. What I can find is a king that comes from Egypt, and he not only brings Egyptians, he brings Ethiopians, he brings people from that area, more than 60,000 of them in tow. I think that's enough to carry off.
Hey,
I think 60,000 people. Look, you might, okay, so we really put it, let's say all the people at Ravens Stadium, that's about 75,000 to 60,000. All those people show up somewhere. I think they can take care. If watch this, if a mob of 20 can destroy a city, I think 60,000 people can take over a temple and a palace in the small area of Jerusalem. I don't think that's hard.
So is this the last known, I guess, in history for the Ark?
Yes.
Okay. And again,
yeah, with the dedication of it in the temple, that's the last mention in the Old Testament that you have the Ark.
So again, this the last statement on your page here where Miss Rose was saying the glory of the Lord had departed.
Right.
I mean, I know we talk about where is it, who has it, but it sounds like to me, to God, at this point, it's not what it was. The ark. Or is it? I mean, you know, if he was allowed to have it taken.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So here's what they're saying. They're saying that it's actually being kept in Ethiopia. And just like, remember when the Philistines had the rats and the tumors and they gave it back and it was at Eliezer's house for more than 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that kind of situation. It's being kept, and the people that are keeping it are actually priests. They even named the church that's in Ethiopia where they believe it is. And they talk about how they care for it and all that kind of stuff. They will not let anybody come see it.
Right.
They certainly won't give it over to science and all that kind of stuff like that. These people are faithful, and it is believed, if you will, that they are just caretakers of it, just like they are serious. They're not out for profit and that kind of thing. They actually train the next set of priests to kind of look after this thing.
So I don't know how accurate it was, but on the History Channel, they had a special and they were talking about the location and was it really where it's supposed to be or where people think it is.
Right.
And so they went to 3 different locations that is supposed to be known in Ethiopia where it's supposed to be housed. And so each of the locations were difficult places to get to. They were like on mountainsides and, you know, you had to get through different areas and it was really difficult as they traveled and only a limited amount of people could come with a certain prestige about them.
Right.
And when they got to a certain point, they were not allowed to get any further. So they couldn't confirm or deny if that was the locations. Again, I don't know how accurate it was, but it was a documentary on History Channel not too long ago in reference to the location and the sacredness of just the whole area where it was. And it wasn't anybody like famous or well-known that was the keepers.
Right.
It was, you know, low key, didn't let a lot of tourists or anything come to the area. It wasn't fancy or anything like that.
Right.
But that was the purpose of it. So nobody would come there and try to, you know, any stealing or anything else. It was really interesting.
Yeah, and you guys know, even today, we got people like the Order of Masons. We got people that have secrets that they are supposedly are guarding, and they all got to do with, believe it or not, spiritual things and things concerning God. If you really dig into really what these groups and stuff are, you know, they got these covenant people that are mindful of this kind of stuff. So in my mind, it's not unreasonable to think that, yeah, it's being hidden and being cared for. And of course, these people aren't, again, they're not profiteers. They're not looking for fame. They are being faithful to God. And their job is to keep this thing up until, I guess, either Jesus returns or up until some authority from the church or from heaven tells them that it should be revealed. You know, we have this thing concerning a lot of things, not just the Ark of the Covenant. But I mean, they're talking about people that, you know, just like our United States, they keep the Articles of Confederation and the Declaration of Independence, and you know, these things are kept in places and they have them sealed, and you know, they don't even want age to kind of destroy them. You know, so we have ways and in places. They got tombs in pyramids, you know, that have mummified bodies and artifacts are there, and you know, everybody say, and everybody that been to these places say this stuff is for real, and the old people knew how to preserve something if they wanted something preserved. You know, it's the young people that talk too much and don't keep nothing and throw everything away. That's not what antiquity taught. Antiquity taught that certain things were sacred, and certainly they were worth preserving. And if it would not be, say, a stretch in my imagination to think that somebody somewhere is a caretaker of this ark, and it's just being kept. So I put up this last, this was the overview that we sent out at the beginning of class. We'll just close here because I wanted you to see this last scripture where the book of Revelation talks about it. And again, when you read it, it's kind of the way it's worded. The question is, which ark are we talking about? Then God's temple, this is Revelation 11:19. Then God's temple in heaven was open, and within his temple was seen the ark of his covenant. And there came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, an earthquake, and a severe hailstorm. And so this is how the book of Revelations kind of, and this is not even the end, this is chapter 11 of the book of Revelation. And my question every time I read that, based on what we've been talking about, when you say in this temple was seen the ark of the covenant, is that the people of God, or is that the ark of his covenant? And again, it is, you think about the heavenly realm, we never talk about kind of like earthly things being in heaven. I mean, they talk about the streets are paved with gold and that kind of thing. But for the most part, we don't really associate with heaven things like, you know, furniture or all of that. But it does say, when you look at the heavenly picture, that some of the things that they built here resemble the things that are in heaven in that regard. So I just wanted to end with that. Oh, let me just show you one more thing. Second Chronicles, I just want you to see the number of slain animals. What I say, let me go to the top of my. I forgot what chapter it was. It's 3, 4, 5. Second Chronicles about, I want to say about 4. Because again, this writer goes into more detail. Again, in chapter 3, he starts talking about the building of the temple, all the things we went over. The dedication is in chapter 5. At verse 2, at that time, Solomon assembled Jerusalem elders, all the tribal heads, the ancestral chiefs, in order to bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord from the city of David, that is Zion. So all the men of Israel were assembled in the king's presence at the festival. There we are again with the festival. This was in the 7th month. All the Israel came, and the Levites picked up the ark. They brought up the ark. See, the priestly writing says the Levites. It doesn't say priests and Levites. It says the Levites. Those are the Aaron's descendants. Meaning the holy utensils were in the tent. The priests and the Levites, King Solomon, and the entire congregation who gathered around were in front of the ark, sacrificing sheep and cattle that could not be counted or numbered. I thought he had the numbers in here.
Pastor,
Yes.
in Solomon's dedication to the temple,
Yes.
in First Kings, it names, is this the dedication to the temple? It's
Yes.
it says that and Solomon offered a sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered to the Lord, 22,000 bulls and 120,000 sheep.
Yes.
Would that be the dedication also?
Yes. That's exactly. It's in which you in First Kings chapter
I'm in First Kings for 8,
Okay.
chapter 62.
Okay. So it's also written in Second Chronicles chapter 7, verse
Okay.
4.
All
The
right.
king and all the people offering sacrifices to the Lord's presence. King Solomon offered 22,000 cattle. I mean, y'all just imagine that. 22,000 cattle, 120,000 sheep. In this manner, the king and all the people dedicated God's temple. The priests were standing at their stations. Now, of course, there are people that do these numbers with this stuff, 22,000 and 120,000. I have no information concerning. I do know the 120,000 is a division of 12, which is the 12 tribes times 10,000, if you will. But 22,000, I'm quite sure there's some numerologists that have dug into these numbers. Okay, any other questions? Did you guys learn anything? I learned some stuff.
Yes, I learned a lot.
God.
Yes, we learned stuff.
All right, you guys have been a great class, and again, you know, as we go toward the end of the year, and things come up that tie into what we've studied, we'll certainly bring them out in your for your observation. But this has really been enlightening. This is the first time I've ever done the Ark of the Covenant, and it's been amazing. It's been amazing. Okay, if there are no pressing questions, we'll release you. It's 8:45. We went a little bit over these last 3 sessions, but I think it was well warranted. Keep reading your scriptures. And again, you have to know, and I'll send you this here that we just did tonight with the answers on them. As you kind of use these things for meditation. Oh, I was asking you to use Solomon's prayer as a meditation prayer. And it's found in 1 Kings 8:23-30. So if you would just pray that prayer between now and Sunday, like in your daily prayer or your meditation, whatever is your normal time, we would appreciate it, because we're going to be praying the same prayer as well leading up to the Sunday school. All right, everybody's there?
Yes.
And Pastor, we thank you for your guidance and facilitation.
Thank you so much, Pastor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all, man. You guys have made this fun. And again, I'm telling you, this platform, I'm quite sure we're going to be doing Zoom Bible study for a long time to come, because we certainly have more participation, and it's so much easier than driving to the church and trying to find dinner before you get there and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's great.